is a public meeting, let's go through the meeting protocol, which most of you will be familiar with. I'll need to give it a run through. Okay. All visitors must sign into the visitor book at the entrance to Kilncraigs. This includes council staff from other buildings. There is no planned fire evacuation drill or alarm test today, and if the fire alarm is activated during your visit, you must exit the building immediately. The council officers will direct you to the nearest fire exit and will escort visitors to the building fire assembly point beside the Silver Man at the top of Parliament Walk. Kilncraigs staff should report to their floor's assembly point. You should remain at your assembly point until directed to reoccupy the building and only re-enter once the fire marshal has advised it is safe to do so. Please do not attempt to leave the site by vehicle until cleared to do so by the fire marshal to ensure that the access routes are kept clear for emergency vehicles. Please note that this is a public meeting and that members of the public may be in attendance. The meeting will also be recorded by the clerk and published online for public viewing after the meeting. Otherwise, the taking of photographs, including screenshots, audio or video recordings, are not permitted during the meeting unless with the express permission of the chair. Can members attending virtually activate their cameras where possible to enable you to join by video, and can all attendees mute their microphones when not speaking? And please do not come in during items unless I invite you to do so. If members attending virtually wish to speak on any point, please indicate by clicking on the Raise Your Hand button. Members in the chamber should also raise their hand, and I will bring you in at an appropriate time. If members have not been able to access all the papers for this meeting, please indicate now. Right, no indications, and I will now ask the clerk to confirm attendance at this planning committee and ask that members indicate if they wish to declare an interest.
Chair, other than Councillor McCluskey, I can't see him online either. Is that correct? Apologies.
Apologies.
Otherwise, everybody else is here. Thank you.
Right. Now, declarations of interest. Does anyone anything they wish to declare? And I'll make a declaration. Also, as chair of the planning committee, I'm also one of the governors on Rother Academy board, but I don't feel I've applied the reasonableness test myself, and I don't feel that in any way inhibits my ability to be impartial in today's meeting or anything that takes account of actions from the Academy. Okay, that's all today's declaration of interest. We'll now do item 3, which is the confirmation of the minutes from the planning committee meeting the 23rd of January. And we'll just go through that as in the usual way, page by page. So we'll start on page 5. Any amendments or corrections? Page 5, page 6, or page 7? There being none, we will consider those minutes to be adopted. Thank you.
Sorry, it was just in regards to the wellbeing one. I had, during the meeting, I'd said, I think it was it Black Grange Road? It was just to make sure that that was changed on any of the terms or if it affected it. Because it was the incorrect road that was named on the pages.
We have an audio malfunction. Right. Sorry, Fiona, you're making, that's the wrong one. You were making a comment about a correction to an address.
Yeah, I think it said Black Grange Road in part of it, to do with, I think, traffic control or something, but that was actually, that wasn't the correct road, so it was just to make sure that that was corrected and going forward.
Okay, I'm sure that will be noted.
It's actually noted in the minutes already at planning application sections, like the last paragraph before you get to motion, where it says during questions typograph where identified in 16 and 4 that Black Grange Road should be read as Smithfield.
All right, grand. Thank you.
Yeah, just it was changed and we'll just find out it's the proper address. Oh, Councillor Errol, you wish to speak?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Chair, it's just to remind you that I'll have to leave the meeting at 2:45 and return again about 10:30. Sorry, did you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
Did you,
Do I need to do anything?
sorry, Chair, did you hear me?
Not clearly, Kenny. Sorry, one more go.
I have to leave the meeting at 2:45 and return at 10:30.
Thanks, Kenny. Got that. Okay. Item 4, the dollar expansion planning applications. I won't read out the full titles, that'll just take too long. And this report will be given to us by Keith Johnson. Good morning. The 2 reports update committee following their decision to approve the applications to expand dollar, which was subject to officers concluding section 75s as set out in the heads of terms approved by committee at its meeting in February 2022. This process has been concluded and is intended that the planning permission principles be issued following their signing. The timeframes for the determination of the applications has taken several years. The process has included being major developments subject to statutory pre-application consultation in the community, the undertaking of predetermination hearings over 2 sessions of the committee in 2020, which allowed the views of the community representatives to be heard before the applications were presented to committee for determination. The committee then considered the applications at its meeting in April 2021, where they were deferred to include an opportunity for further consultation with community representatives and the applicants. The committee agreed they would be referred back for decision with finalised heads of terms and a set of conditions. In February 2022, the applications were reported back to committee following those meetings with community representatives, and Appendix 1 of the report summarised discussions with the community and officers' responses to the issues that had been raised. The committee agreed then to approve the applications based on those updates, subject to officers concluding the section 75, and the heads of terms were set out in the report, and there were some changes to those which were minuted in the decision of the committee meeting. The purpose of this report is for information and not approval of the section 75s, but then to note that they have been concluded in accordance with the decision by committee. The fact there have been 2 applications has contributed to the time taken to conclude the agreements, as well as potential complexities to ensure each development will deliver the infrastructure required if developed individually or collectively. Table 1 in the report sets out the minutes of decision of committee in 2022, and the left-hand column sets out what was minuted, and the final position set out in the section 75s is set out on the right-hand column. The conditions have not changed and remain the same as those approved by committee in 2022. The heads of terms of clearly the report have not, sorry, lost my place there. Therefore, just to add, there was additional points that committee asked for in relation to pedestrian bridge over the Dollar Burn, community fund, works related to traffic impact, an education contribution to primary and nursery provision, and also contribution for health to NHS Forth Valley. The outcome accords with the decision recorded by committee in terms of the scope of the section 75, and as I say, the conditions remain as the same. Therefore, the reports are made available for committee for noting and to allow the outline planning permission principle to be released. Does that conclude your report? All right. I really put chapter 2 there. Okay, time for questions. Councillor Law.
Thanks. I just wanted to double check. On page 28, there is the Lovers Lane road widening. It's a really difficult word for me to say, actually. And page 29, it's got the park place improvements, and it says that details to be for an exclusion school zone during a specific time, and these details have to be set out in the council's road order. Obviously, the road order I don't think would be enforced during construction, so I just wanted to check that there'd be no construction traffic being done or movement around that kind of what would be the exclusion time zone in that area.
That matter, as I say, at the moment this would be a planning permission in principle, but the conditions that are attached to that require construction management plan, and those matters would be covered in that, which would define the measures to safeguard pedestrian road safety during any construction period in the surrounding area. So it would be caught at the next stage when matters specified in condition applications are submitted, and that would obviously be one of the first things that would have to be submitted and agreed to manage construction traffic.
Well, that's grand. I just wanted to check, and so the public were aware of it, because it is something that I think is quite concerning, I think, usually around any school zone. Can I also ask in regards to the contribution to education, in regards to the sum of the money, and should that change? Because I know that construction costs are always increasing, so I just wanted to make sure that does that take that into account as we move forward, because I don't know obviously the timescale as to when this construction would happen, and just in the last 6 months prices have shot up and they look like that they could continue to do so. So I just wanted to make sure that that is not staying at the same level should construction costs rise.
Well, excuse me, looking at the terms of the Section 75, obviously the contributions will be indexed, and that's based on the building cost from the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors on a quarterly basis. So it will be indexed, and as you say, in recent years there's been quite high construction inflation costs. That would be covered by that. I've also... Sorry to interrupt, Keith. Is that in the papers? Could you reference a page? Sorry, it's page 27. Well, I'm looking at one of the reports, page 27, just after halfway down, in terms of the definitions used in the Section 75. There's index. Oh, yes. Got it. And that sets out... And obviously the Section 75 follows a kind of template that we have developed with our legal advisors in terms of best practice, in terms of delivering contributions from developers. And that indexing will kick in once we get the Section 75 agreement signed and planning permission or permission principles out. Underneath and indexed, the next one below that, if you note on A, when it's calculating the formula, it does refer to the education contribution only, would be based on figures from September 2021. So I believe that would also help address your concern about changes in the costs as the figures have been provided, from Education Service. That tallies with, when the discussions have been carried out for that.
And can I just ask, also just following on from that bit, the insolvency event, because I know that there's a bond for the roads. I just wondered in regards to, just because I've heard about other housing developments in Scotland when they've been built, then there's been an issue with, say, water pipes and sewage pipes, that there wasn't a bond there, and those houses have then been kind of left to have a horrible kind of legal battle to get that resolved. And I'm just kind of concerned about that and the fact that there's two different kind of developers here as well. Is there anything there that could help mitigate that kind of situation arising?
It's not something that I think we would typically or usually, address or plan for in, planning permissions where there would be bonds for drainage or other infrastructure. Obviously, in terms of the roads, they will be adopted by, or most of them are adopted by the council, and obviously we want to ensure that we can make sure they're installed to a suitable standard, notwithstanding what happens to the developer. But as I say, in terms of the other infrastructure, that's not something we would normally address with planning.
So within the section 75, there's provisions there in relation to a guarantee being granted by the, needs to be a financial guarantee provided by the provider, which is all defined, but it's in particular reference to the transport infrastructure works at Dollar South. So the guarantee will be there to protect, the works that are being carried out in relation to that. That was one of the things I asked for when we were in discussions about this. So it's separate to give it a layer of protection for the works, for transport infrastructure works specifically.
But not the waste pipes, just transportation.
Yeah, that's probably the one with the big ticket in terms of costs.
Yeah, okay.
So to follow up that question then, and the response about the sewage and waste pipes, do we now consider that is not worth pursuing, or is it something we should look at? If it's not embedded in the section 75, then I guess we can't really consider it.
Well, I mean, the section 75 is the continual obligations against the land to get on the property. That's the point of a section 75. So even if an individual went in, there was administration or insolvency, the chances are the land will be sold with the benefit of the planning permission, with the benefit of the section 75 being in place, which requires all the implementations in terms of that planning permission in the section 75, and to ensure that it all gets completed. I'm not sure if that gives you any more comfort.
I just thought, from what I've seen on the news reported, that there was houses that people were living in. It was halfway through construction. Some of the houses they were living in, the developers then went into administration, and they were left with pipes works not completed. And I don't think there was any bond there in regards to that. The piping, obviously, there's. As you say, there was a roads bond, but there wasn't anything to do with the piping.
So I think before anybody takes occupation of a property, they're given habitation as part of building standards provisions. So, whether that's a certificate of practical completion certificate or a habitation certificate. So I'm not sure I understand in terms of where that, because if they impacted on the house, then habitation would never have been granted. But if they're impacting in terms of maybe, are you thinking like drainage coming from water coming from the roads, or actual drainage pipes? Because that bit I'm not sure I really understand.
Well, I think there has been issues with the sewage pipes as well as the drainage that wasn't completed correctly. And I know there was one in Kinross that there was, I think it was Kinross, that there wasn't the sewage pipes, there was issues there, and it took a battle for them to actually get completed properly.
I think, so just to interject, but I think ultimately I don't think that would be something we could address or regulate reasonably through the planning process. But obviously I know what you're saying is a circumstance would be very serious for any resident if that wasn't completed. But a developer gets their consents and their building warrant and then have to build out. But I don't think we could address all this potential if a drainage fails or water supply or the electricity. I don't think planning can really provide those kind of guarantees through the process we have.
So what comfort then could we give the house owners that these things would be taken care of in the event of an administration problem or something like that?
So I'm not sure what's happening with these particular developments and in terms of the residential ones, but there are normally other guarantees which the developers put in place, whether that is like an insurance policy, things like NHBC, Zurich, they kind of give them, it's like a 10-year guarantee in relation to the house that is built. Most developers do it, but in fact probably the funders would normally require that to be done. But that kind of gives the residents the protection that they need. So in other words, if there's a failure within drainage within their property, then they can use that NHBC guarantee and call upon that, or Zurich, and I'm not sure what the developers are doing, or if they are putting anything in place in relation to these, and it would be, I'd be surprised that they didn't, because most owners, when they're purchasing the property, would, it's expected, for anybody who's purchasing. So if you can imagine the individual resident purchasing the property, their own funder, their bank would be going, right, well, what's the guarantees in relation to the works? So that's where I think maybe you could potentially call upon that. That might give a layer of protection for the residents who are buying properties where there is an issue with drainage.
Okay.
Are you okay with that then for the moment, Fiona?
I suppose I'll have to.
Anyone else want to address any questions to officers? I do have a question. We've had an informal approach regarding the consultation process, and from Dora Community Council, who feel that they have not been fully involved in the discussions and the debate, etc., in the formation of the Section 75. This is their opinion, and have asked us to consider withholding approval of the Section 75 effectively by adopting this paper until they've had time to look at it. There's obviously been consultation in the past, and the minutes of the meeting in the 8th of February 2022 outline that fact. But just to consider them, in fairness to consider their request, what would be the implications, do you feel, of withholding adopting this paper?
Yeah. Well, obviously we're talking about major investment, in dollar in the area and delivering that, and obviously it's in everyone's interest that the community as well as everyone is happy with what's going on and are satisfied with it. I think from my perspective, I wasn't directly involved in this particular, in these applications, but as far as I can see as the planner, it was the minuted decision. There was, and I think I tried to express that in the comments. There's been quite lengthy and consultation between the applicants, the council, and the community. And committee did come to a decision, having raised all the concerns or heard all the concerns in 2022. In effect, what we're here today is the officers have implemented the decision of the committee. And concluded, got the Section 75 is concluded. I think delaying it is could risk, response from the developers. They obviously are looking to get planning permission to progress. It's maybe slight risk in a short-term delay, but they could decide to appeal. It's been a very complicated situation in terms of getting the Section 75s to this point, and obviously there's interrelationships between them, so any further delay or potential expectation of changes, I think, would be something I would be concerned about in terms of what would we be doing? Would it be consultation or just getting feedback? Because I think essentially we have decisions, we have the issues addressed, and the terms of Section 75 reflect those. And I don't think there's scope really to then change or alter those, but I accept if there's scope to help further communication or meet with the representatives again to kind of go over the points. As I say, if there were significant material differences between what's before members today and what was agreed in 2022, that there may be a case there. You would say, well,
But as I say, I don't see that that is the case. And I think in terms of Section 75, fit with what the previous committee decided to approve.
And the basic job of the Section 75 agreement is to agree the developer contributions bit for bit. It's not to write the master plan in any kind of way. And I feel that's an important distinction.
It is effectively to deal with matters that could not be delivered through planning conditions. So essentially, mainly, it's to deal with the developer contributions. And I mean, I think people have different views in it, but there's a good range of contributions that have been secured from the developers on some topics that in the past we've maybe struggled with in terms of health contributions and community fund. So I mean, I think there's it's quite successful in terms of the range of contributions that will be delivered as part of the development.
And as we go forward in the process, and each phase comes up for full planning permission, there's an opportunity at that time for representation from interested parties, is there not?
I think if going forward, then I think the applicants would agree that there will be further phases of development applications, that there should be communication and liaison with the local community in advance of applications coming, so people know what's coming in, and we can manage that process. And I think everybody would be committed to doing that as we go forward.
Okay, thanks for that, Keith. Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, just a bit of a follow-up then, based on what you were asking, Councillor Quinn. Yeah, we're not actually voting on this, are we? The recommendation is information only. So this was already decided 2022. This is just the officers then would agree. The officers have agreed. This is just the report to us. So we're not actually making a decision on this today. This is just for our information, essentially, and to ask questions and that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Excellent. Thank you. Just one. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, the minutes of the meeting of 8th of February 2022 actually outline, and there's a table in there showing the consultation column and the final sort of interpretation of the various inputs into Section 75 intention column on the right-hand side. So the assumption is that what's in that column has found its way through unmodified to today's Section 75. That is, I think, what my assumption is. I take it that would be your position, that has come through unmodified from the original intentions.
Yes, the Section 75 before you have addressed the requirements that were minuted from the 8th of February in 2022 in delivering contributions, essentially covering the various issues that were minuted at that time.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Okay, in that case, I will propose the paper formally. We know what it's all about. And Donald, you'll second that. Thank you, Councillor Bilsilly. Thanks very much.
If you don't mind seconding, I don't think I can come back in, so I'd like to say a few things about the application.
Please.
As has been highlighted, this is really just a paper for noting, and it was, I actually chaired the planning committee at the time, so it was really something we put in place to ensure that there wasn't an absolute howler in there in terms of not meeting the wishes either of the community or indeed of the developer, because the Section 75 agreement is essentially an agreement between two or more parties. In this case, we're dealing with two applications and two different landowners, as well as the aspirations of both the council, the community council and Dollar Community Development Trust. It was complex, and yes, it's taken quite a time to bring the paper, the Section 75 agreement back, probably because of issues like COVID, as well as the complexity. We've got to remember that both developers have agreed to reduce the scale of the development. But what I would say is I would commend everybody involved in this. I would thank the landowners, the developers. I'd like to thank the Community Council. I'd like to thank Dollar Development Trust, and in particular, I'd like to thank our own council officers, Grant Baxter, who's moving on, and indeed Keith, for pulling all of this to agreement. I would highlight to the Planning Committee that this is probably the first large-scale application that we've actually secured the agreements that we wish. In other words, the planning system's actually working for us. We've secured affordable housing through the Section 75 agreement. We've secured addressing the traffic impacts that the community identified. We've secured a new pedestrian bridge. We've secured a contribution to a community fund. We've secured funding towards the impact of the development in terms of our education estate. And we've secured a contribution to our health services. Very few of those elements did we secure in Sauchie West, for instance, which went to the reporter. So this is, to my mind, is working. We should have note it, and this will allow the planning consents to be issued and development to go ahead and people's wishes to be delivered and mindful in terms of the landowner and the redevelopment of Dollar, the expansion, as well as the community facilities that go along with that. So I'm pleased to see that we've got this paper in front of us today, and I look forward to the consents being issued.
Thank you, Donald. Anyone wish to debate the paper? No? Are we proposing to accept the paper, adopt the paper? Yeah. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Let's move on to item 5. Oh, yes. Right. At this point, there's some new information that's coming in. I'm going to call a recess for how long? 10-minute recess, reconvene at past.
I'm just calling you a minute, but want to speak to the chair first.